This is Ralph Perez, Horror and Coffee. And here I am with an old friend of mine here, Jerry Landi, movie director extraordinaire from the Bronx, here in the Bronx as well. We're both based in the Bronx. And he has been known for making quite a good handful of pictures that have actually won some awards in some film festivals.
You could actually say, I had a publicist at one point, he goes, you got to say you're an award-winning filmmaker. That sounds pretentious. But yeah, I have won a lot of awards. People seem to like my films. It's there was a coin phrase, the Jerry Landi film, and that usually means that you don't know what to expect. You're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you may jump a couple of times. So I got a reputation of being a worker, and I started making feature films. While most people start with short films, I started making full-length feature films, and then got lazy and started making short films.
And if you caught that, catch more, because we are here at the actual Cinema on the Sound, a movie theater that Jerry himself here owns here in City Island. And it is here on Saturday, May 31st, and if you're watching this before the 31st, you know where to go, is where he'll be debuting his latest film coming out called Tales from Clipper Coffee. Horror and Coffee. I had to capitalize on that. I was like, what? Wait a minute, right? And Clipper Coffee is an actual cafe right next door here in City Island, where I've had coffee there, I've had food there. It's a great little cafe spot, right? Yeah. And here we are hanging out here, and this is an amazing experience. I've interviewed you before in the past with your previous films. My daughters have been in one of your films.
Yeah, but those are one of my films.
Right, and it's been an incredible journey. But let me start with a couple of questions for you here. How did the idea for Tales from Clipper Coffee come about? Where did that come from?
Well, a couple of years ago, I wrote a script about the coffee shop, but it was a different vibe. It was more of me coming to the island after shooting Bat Radicus and being totally burnt out, and coming in here and hanging out in the coffee shop and kind of liking the vibe and starting to work in the coffee shop and, dealing with it that way. So that was the first script I wrote years ago. And then we started talking, and we wanted to do it again, and I said, well, I'd like to do an anthology film about stories in Clipper Coffee. So I called a bunch of my filmmaker friends, and I said, why don't you guys all do a segment for the film? So it won't be a Jerry Landi film, it'll be a Bronx filmmakers film. So I could expose the different artists, and the only criteria was it has to take place in the coffee shop. So 7 directors signed on to the beginning, and I gave them a March 25th deadline to have it to me, so I could finish the final cut and get it out there. Well, by December, I realized that there was only one filmmaker who was actually ready to shoot, and I ran into a dilemma, and I said, well, this kind of changes the whole frame of the film now, because now I got to figure out how I'm going to make up the stories that these people are going to do. So what I did was I started writing, and little short scenarios that take place in the coffee shop. And at that point, it started to become a Jerry Landi movie, because it was a lot of my writing in there. So a lot of the stuff that people like about my films, the comedy, the horror, all the stuff is in here. And it became a different film. And I think it actually became a better film, because we had a long time to sit and work on it and to go, well, wait a minute, maybe we should do this. So this is the first time I've ever made a movie that took this long, and that was basically like the Frankenstein monster that was being created as we were shooting it. Okay. And I don't like working that way. I'm one of these meticulous directors that doesn't really stick to the script, but wants people to kind of be in the frame of the script. This movie, I scripted half of it, and half of it is improv. And the improv stuff wound up turning out really good, because I said, I have characters out here. Like people that come in here every day and tell stories, they're not actors. But when they tell the story, you're compelled, and you're listening to it, and you're laughing and everything. So I said, let me just get a bunch of real people and just basically do a Larry David and say, okay, this is the scenario. Okay, let's work it out. And I got to tell you something. It was usually the first take where I got the best stuff. And when I was showing it to people, they were going, wow, he's a good actor. I go, that's him. being himself, playing this part. So the movie is kind of it's experimental as far as I'm in my life. It's an experimental film because it was created as we were working on it. When you start cutting it, you're going, oh my God, this is working. And it starts flowing nice. And then you go, wow, this is probably working out better than the original idea was. And that's never happened to me before because I'm usually very...
It's a first for you.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've worked on something like this. That was a little more loosey-goosey as opposed to like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And we showed a couple of people already, and they loved it. They were like, this is entertaining, it's fun. So the first screening is going to be this Saturday night, and I'm going to get to sit in the back and watch the reactions that people have. It's already been accepted into 2 film festivals.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's like, but I want to see how our people react.
People here in the Bronx.
Well, the Bronx. It's and people say when Crackoon first came out, we showed it in the neighborhood, and everybody in the neighborhood loved this movie. I mean, everybody just loved the movie. And one of my friends said, "But what's going to happen once we take it out of the Bronx and move it to like San Francisco or Florida, where all the places that it played?" And we went to the Roxy in San Francisco. Not only did we were the first film at the festival's history to sell out, like the place was packed. But the reception the audience got was amazing. And my friend goes, you're right. He goes, comedy is universal. It's like some things, like, if you do a family story about the Irish, the Italians don't kind of get it. If you do those kind of things, people, they kind of have an idea what it's going to be. Crackoon was one of the movies that just came out of left field, and it was funny, and it was political, and the idea of a crack-addicted raccoon killing politicians because they're taking over their marshlands, it just seemed to snap with people. And people, like somebody said to me, why don't you ever kill the monsters in your movie? Because they're my heroes.
Yeah!
I mean, I never killed a monster.
I noticed that.
I don't kill monsters. Monsters are my people. So I've never killed a monster in a movie. My monsters always get away with everything in the end. They disappear, and sometimes they come back for another movie. So, well, the first Crackoon, I killed almost the whole cast. And then when the movie got really popular in New York, the Daily News did a story on it. The Post did a story on it. We were offered a reality show. It was like, it clicked with somebody. Like the movie clicked. It's also been ripped off, as you know. Somebody actually ripped off Crackoon. And if I find out who you are, I'm coming to your house.
Heard that?
Yeah. But the thing is, I think a bunch of people, including a bunch of horror writers, said this movie was made already.
Yeah.
It was made twice. It was 2 of them. But I get a lot of calls saying these guys, they thought that Cocaine Bear ripped me off. I'm like, no.
Not really,
no.
But it was still close. It was a little close.
I've ripped off monsters being affected by radiation and drugs just like were done 100 years before me. It's not something that I created. It's a genre of movies where monsters take something they shit and they become creatures.
Yeah.
So it's not something I invented. It's something I ripped off. So
Tell us, actually, about the help you received for this movie. Any kind of, like, acknowledgement to the anywhere from the actors to the people working behind the scenes?
I was very lucky on this movie to have someone named Jason Booth work with me. Now, Jason Booth has worked on TV, movies. He's like, I've known about him for the longest time, and then he comes and moves to City Island, and I become friends with him. So there's one scene in the movie where, I don't want to give too much away, but there's something with our coffee that they love our coffee. Our coffee all of a sudden becomes really popular. And I needed like a large crowd of people to be losing their shit. I could curse on this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Online because they can't wait to get this coffee. So I had a casting call in the Bronx Times Reporter. Says, we'll give you cookies and coffee. Come out. Well, I don't know. The street was full of people. 70 people that came to this thing. They were all in the cinema. So Jason Booth, who is an assistant director on Spider-Man movies, he's worked on Boardwalk Empire, the Sherlock Holmes movie, TV show that was on. He's just in everything. So he got all his guys to come and organize this crowd. Wow. So when I went up and down with the camera, they would tell me, stop at this person, and we prepped them. So I had a lot of help. It was one of the first times where I actually just got to be creative with the camera and not have to worry about wrangling people and people in the right spot. And we also had a couple of people from the neighborhood. My niece Camille graduated SCAD and came to live with us, and she cut the movie because she went to school for editing. So
nice.
She helped me edit, which took a lot of time, let me focus on making this movie as opposed to working on how to cut it.
So it was kind of like a communal support.
And it was Marvin Suarez, my male film wife, who we work. I work so well with him. We work on a movie and I'll just tell him blah blah blah, and then he'll just go off and do his thing, and I'll be happy with it.
Yeah.
So and Pete. So there was like 4 of us that really held this movie together. We were all working to try to make it work and everything. So those are the 4. Those are the people that really helped me out with this, and I thank you all.
When you look back at your first film, Crackoon, you mentioned Crackoon a little while ago, and all the other films you've made since, Talk to the Dead, Patraticus, things like that. Let me ask you this. Have any of the lessons that, and I'm reading because I got it, that you learned, any of the lessons that you learned in the process of those films, have you found those lessons to be applicable to the design and make of this new film?
When we first made Crackoon, we didn't think anybody was going to see it but us.
Mm-hmm.
So we went out and did a total kamikaze style, stole locations, built puppets ourselves, used the enabler and everything. And it was a good learning experience because you had to work with very little, right? So it was a pizza budget movie. We had 1 camera, 2 lights. They were old arc lights, and the bugs would go on them and they would explode while we were shooting. So it was like all these things. So from that shoot, I learned don't shoot outside at night, which we did with Bronx Bigfoot, but it was different.
Bronx Bigfoot.
Bronx
I forgot about Bronx Bigfoot.
Bronx Bigfoot.
Yeah.
We shot it outside in Veterans Park with handheld lights at 3 o'clock in the morning. And these 3 drunks were walking through the park and everybody hid. And somebody saw the Bigfoot. So one of the guys goes, "Is Jerry Landi out here making a movie?" They knew. And the neighborhood, they knew it. And then all of a sudden we all start coming out of the woods. And they were like, and the other thing I learned is get permission to shoot on locations because sometimes you could get arrested. But I think the most important lesson I learned is to have good people around you. Like, don't have sycophants around you. Have people who are going to tell you, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Like, I'll take criticism from somebody because I want the movie to be better. And in the beginning, I was very, arrogant. Like, no, fuck you. This is the way I want to do it. But then I realized that there were certain people who were trying to help me. And they're not telling me this to make me mad. They're telling me this to make the movie better. So I've learned to be a better listener to my cast and my crew and let them kind of, be involved in the process, So that was the biggest lesson because then everybody feels like they're involved in it and everybody does a really great job.
What are your hopes and expectations, plans for any future projects after the experience with Tales from Clipper Coffee?
Well, I've been in negotiations with some people who are interested in shooting one of my scripts, Natty O'Brien, Teenage Exorcist, which is something I needed a ton of money for. And a couple of people... Teenage Exorcist.
Okay.
It's probably the best script. Well, there was another script that the Sci-Fi Channel wanted to option, which was about giant herpy bugs. Yeah, it's a really good script. But the Sci-Fi Channel was willing to film it. I threw it at them as a joke, and they go, "This is a good script." I'm like, okay, whatever. But so I'm talking to somebody now who has a lot of money to put behind the script, and where they read the script, it went through the first group and they liked it, but you know how these things are, so you go through it. So that's what I'm kind of waiting. I'm also working on a documentary about Bob Melendez, who just got convicted, the Jersey politician.
Oh.
Yeah, so somebody's wants me to work on that with them too. So those are 2 projects that are in the future.
Anything you want to tell everybody there in Horror and Coffee about Tales from Clipper Coffee? Any last words about that?
I think everybody's gonna enjoy this film. It's gonna be fun. It's not boring at all. It's a 65-minute film that moves really fast. So by the time you realize what's going on, it's over and you go, I want more. Which is something I like. I don't like people walking out of the movie like, oh, this went on a little too long. Because I see the film festivals, people start nodding out, and I'm looking forward to people actually seeing this, and I'm really looking forward to people seeing. I'm actually one of the main actors in the movie.
I saw the preview.
And I've been in a bunch of movies over the last couple of years that I didn't want to be in. Filmmaker friends of mine, they do favors for me, and they go, "Could you be in my movie?" I go, "But I'm not an actor." And they go, "But I want you in the movie." So over the last year, I played a priest, a killer with a pig mask, a guy who abuses women.
Oh.
Which is like, I was like, okay, whatever. But it's a friend of mine. So when we were making this movie, somebody said you should incorporate you and Pete in the movie a little more, because you guys, in the morning, you guys had these conversations that you forget to open the store because you're sitting there having these deep conversations.
Yeah.
So part of the movie is showing what Pete and I do and nobody else is around, which is probably some of the funniest stuff in the movie. But I'm just hoping that people come out of there feeling really good, because it's a feel good movie. It's got some horror in it. And one episode is really horrific. So, and like I said, it wasn't supposed to be a Jerry Landi film. It turned into a Jerry Landi film. And I had this short story that I wanted to produce for a long time. So I said, I'm going to incorporate it into this movie. So
maybe one day there will be another movie called More Tales from Clipper Coffee.
Well, yeah, if I could get a bunch of filmmakers to actually do what I wanted to do the last time, I would do it again. But I'm kind of like, I like to move on. Like when I did Crackhoon 2, it was only because Crackhoon 1 was so popular that people were throwing money at me. And that was like a big budget for me.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
And I was like, well, if they're going to give me the money, I'm going to take a shot at it. But now it's really hard to finance independent films because there's almost no payoff. I mean, you know. So if you make a movie for $100,000 and your return is only $300. And when it goes on streaming, they don't really pay you. Streaming gives you a couple of cents on the dollar.
It was on Prime.
Oh yeah, a bunch of my movies are on Prime. Prime is better. Prime is pretty good. I have 2 movies on Prime now, my Holocaust documentary and Bat Radicus. And the new movie, Bronx Lore, which won an award last year, is actually going to be out on Amazon too.
Nice.
So that's another anthology. That's a real hardcore anthology story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Looking forward. I'm gonna check those out. I saw Betraticus.
Yeah.
So, but I'll see the other stuff. So there you have it, everybody. This is Jerry Landi, debuting his next project, Tales from Clipper Coffee, where you have horror and you have coffee. Like my channel. If you like my channel, please consider subscribing and tap on that bell for future notifications for future horror and coffee content, where you see more of Jerry's stuff and other stuff of horror movies, both independent, low budget films, and the big Hollywood stuff, where we try to cover all of it, because there's nothing more fun than watching horror movies and having fun with it.
And the last thing I want to say is that we're on City Island, we're Cinema on the Sound. We show movies that nobody else shows.
Yeah.
We have like a Wacky Wednesdays where I pull movies out of the hat that no one's ever heard of, and they walk out of here really happy. We're showing Slugs tonight, which will be too late for this. But our Wacky Wednesdays, we fill this place up with people because I show movies that they've never heard of, and they walk out of here like, whoa. So
I gotta come here on a Wednesday night.
So yeah, so we're and we show movies on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. You can look at us on Instagram, Cinema on the Sound, Facebook. Just look up Jerry Landi. We need support here, and we support the independent film industry. This place is filled with independent filmmakers that come to show their films for the first time. And I think it's vital that we keep this going. So I would really like people, after seeing this, to just consider coming to Cinema on the Sound one night and seeing how much fun we have here.
And we're going to push that agenda to let people know that independent filmmaking in the Bronx is alive and viable and real thing. Because, that. So
I just got hooked up with these guys. They're great. I've been in the festival twice. I was just in the last festival, and they support Bronx filmmakers. And there's a lot of us here that nobody knows about. So yeah.
All right. So until next time, this is Ralph Perez from Horror and Coffee, and this is Jerry Landi, extraordinary filmmaker, independent Bronx horror filmmaker, and not just horror, other stuff too. He also goes out of the box a bit. Take care, guys. Later.